into the process of from the physical to a higher dimension, there was a gradual process of change where that they went from the physical to the astral. Their whole societies were transferred there. Their vibrations were changed by their level of consciousness and the way that they thought and the way that they lived their daily lives. The Venusian people knew that this process was taking place and preserved one city, the city of Retz, under a climatic dome on the surface of the physical Venus to give them the ability to come into the physical and work here, to raise the consciousness of mankind on Earth. Now, Earth is going through similar processes of change, where that their consciousness is gradually changing and getting to a higher degree. And if this continues, if we continue with our work and spiritual development here, this process will take place on the physical very much the same way. It's not a dramatic change. It's so gradual and so natural that it's almost undetectable by the people that are in the process.
Mankind has always asked where it came from and where it is going. Scientists of all ages have tried to find the origin of life through physical evidence. They have split matter, studied the microcosm and macrocosm, but even so, they only observed life from a certain perspective, adding rows of parallel interpretations of reality. But they overlooked the most important thing of all, the creator of matter, the spirit that lives in all things, the blueprint and information which forms all matter. They see only subjective partial truths because the objective reality is an indefinable state of existence out of which all conceivable partial truths emerge. They will keep splitting life down to the atom, but will not be able to prove the existence.
On Earth came from other planets that are the older planets in your physical solar system, which is Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Venus, the home of the white race, Saturn, the home of the red race, Mars, the yellow, and Jupiter, the black. They brought colonies to Earth when it was a younger planet, just developing, and only had plant and animal life, and set up these colonies, as you know, Atlantis, Lemura, Aztecs, Egyptians, as a few of the societies here. And on all of the dimensions above the physical, the parallel dimensions that run, the astral, mental, causal, etheric, and soul planes, there are vast universes that exist that are parallel to the physical universe. There are, in other words, there are astral dimensions that absolutely are a duplicate of places here on Earth, just as there are on Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. In other words, on all the different dimensions above the physical, these societies and these planets and the whole solar system and everything that exists in the physical is duplicated on the higher dimensions until you get into the planes of our dimensions of existence where there is no reference to the physical. And this is a crossover called the etheric plane. And when you cross the etheric plane, there you leave behind any association or anything that identifies with the physical.
For millennia after the sinking of Atlantis during the Dark Age, man has been separated from himself and has been in search of the Holy Grail. The Holy Sacrail, also called Grail, was man himself. Man himself is the holy container into which the Spirit of God flows. For thousands of lifetimes, mankind's developing soul has searched for itself during the descent of consciousness. Nations and people have been the classrooms of reincarnation in order to develop until that point in time where we enter again a new golden age and where man and God are reunited.
In the New Testament book of Acts, at the time of Pentecost, there are flames of fire that appear over the heads of the apostles. This is a type of manifestation of the light body. In a very small way, it is the opening of the light over the head. The early Christians on Ash Wednesday used to mark the forehead with ash, symbolic of the power of the inner spiritual eye to use the light. In the fuller context of ascension, in the mystical traditions of Christianity and the mystical German thinkers and philosophers, a time would come about that through divine grace, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, the Heilige Geist, would allow the light to come around the body and wrap the human recipient or the believer with such power of light. Here we call this light superluminal light, or greater light than the conventional or common light, which such power and majesty that that person can go directly into the higher dimensions. This is normally called the rapture or the ascension process. It is clear that in the context of ultra-terrestrial intelligence, large members of the human race will experience through the tongues of fire or the miracles of the Holy Spirit or the conjunction with the ultra-terrestrial forces of divine intelligence, the upliftment or the ascension into the higher Christ race of the universe.
Therefore, becoming human has only been a cycle in order to gather new qualities for the cosmic source through suffering and happiness. And once again, we have arrived at the end of a cycle of the cosmic plan of humanity. The survivors of the inner and outer period of cleansing, which have already started, are the seeds for a new spiritual mankind, which will emerge from all nations. It will be the first root race of the fourth planetary cycle, which will rise again into higher consciousness. For some, it will be like the past sinking of Atlantis. For others, like a return, a rising of Atlantis and of its teachings of wisdom. Because fundamentally, every event can be viewed from two sides, from a positive side or a negative one. Even the slightest change in the universe is being guided by the cosmic plan of evolution. The limited human mind fundamentally fears any change, and its biggest fear is death, the wall behind which it cannot see. But nothing gets lost in nature. All elements only change into different, more refined states on their return to the light. So mankind is on the verge of the greatest changes within this planetary cycle, a global metamorphosis.
And the Mayan calendar has never erred in all the years that it existed. And it states that in time when the incoming consciousness, which we would commonly know as the Christ consciousness, comes in, all things must change. Government, science, and religion, unless they accommodate incoming spirit or incoming consciousness, the Christ consciousness, if you will either fall by the wayside or will go through drastic and dramatic changes. Now, we see a lot of that happening in the world right now. We've had a coup in the Soviet Union which failed. Down came the Berlin Wall. Transformational changes taking place in places like Romania, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary. Now we have Azerbaijan and many others. And all we have to do is follow the news and see these great changes taking place. Now, these great changes, of course, are heralding changes yet to come. Changes which are transformational in nature and must come if we are to survive as a planet and the peoples.
These changes will not only touch the lives of all nations, but it will reach beyond all boundaries of life's disciplines, which have already really only existed in thoughts and the actions of humans. Not only does planet Earth change its exterior, its alchemy, but also there is nothing on this planet which is not now in the process of structural and spiritual change. Every process which is not understood brings along a crisis of creation until the process of change has been understood. Thus the future human being finds himself in metamorphosis, like a caterpillar which does not know that it will become a butterfly. Everything in the cosmos, in our planetary system, on Earth, and within ourselves, humans, will step further up the ladder of evolution according to the plan of the Creator, until a point in time when the cosmic night of creation, the exhaling of God, will come to an end. We need not fear any of these changes, because everyone will, as at the end of a school year, progress to the next grade according to his development, or repeat the last year. Heaven and earth will be new. Even a new planet in our own galaxy will be born into a second sun. That part of mankind which opened itself will experience the resurrection into the fifth dimension of consciousness.
Zapewne zauważyliście Państwo w tych latach od 83.
You probably noticed in this period, starting from 1983, that there were many changes both in human outside behavior and in the feelings of our physical bodies. They were also manifested by enormous social movements. Reaching the pattern is not a gift. It is not a convenience either. Setting in order is sometimes painful, sometimes unpleasant in feeling. This is the price of the truth forcing its way through all falseness which we have all created on the planet. Living fiction is very painful. Sometimes our physical body suffers. Sometimes man's inner self or his soul suffers because he has to accept and fit to the program which we have brought down 8 billion years ago. Which means we are returning to this ideal pattern which lets a man live forever, just now through painful experience. The earth, as well as mankind's introduction to the pattern, entered the final period of metamorphosis from the 3rd to the 4th of December 1983. This process will be finished finally in the year 2000. These last years are the time of enormous inner turbulence in mankind and in the planet, because the earth, equally as mankind, has emotional, mental and physical bodies. The earth has to come back to the pattern, in other words, to the spherical form. It is logical then that the earth will undergo quakes, floods and other disasters, but not as an expression of some God's punishment, but simply as a process of coming back to the primary pattern.
Nie jako wyraz kary jakiejś boskiej, ale po prostu powracanie Ziemi do jej pierwotnego wzorca.
The Mayan calendar and many prophecies of ancient prophets and cultures predict the transition from the Dark Age into the new Golden Age to happen by the year 2011. The inscriptions of the Great Pyramid also point to the year 2011. However,